Hi everybody and welcome to IDEA, Thoughts about Literacy and Numeracy. I'm going to be briefly discussing why beliefs are important as we move forward into the future. Well, there's been a lot of talk lately about the future of jobs and how robots and software are going to eat the job market. And it turns out that it looks like that's true. Both lower skilled jobs and middle management jobs look like they're going to be squashed by software. And if your job can be done by software or equipment, eventually it will be. Now, the job market is shifting to innovation and creativity. And so there's going to be a spread of jobs that require those skills. And there's going to be a whole lot of people, particularly in New Zealand, who have lower sets of skills and are not able to make that leap. This is going to present a real problem to our country as we go forward into the future. Now, one of the assumptions made by policymakers and educators is that the way that we're going to meet this challenge is by providing provision to learners, particularly those learners with lower literacy and numeracy skills. So we're going to provide provision, be it online courses, be it workplace literacy, or be it classroom-based provision, and that by doing that, by creating more opportunities for learners to get in front of tutors and to get content, then they will upskill and they'll be able to access these higher level jobs. However, these assumptions aren't borne out by the research. The research around literacy and numeracy is painting a more negative picture around the effects of failing at school and having low levels of literacy and numeracy, and there were already a lot of negative effects anyway. So first of all, we're going to talk about the problem, and then we're going to talk about potential solution. Now, one of the reasons why the assumption that if you take a learner and put them on a course or give them provision isn't borne out by the research has to do with learners' beliefs, and these beliefs operate in two ways. So we're talking about people here who've had particularly problematic experiences during their school years. And what happens during school and those early learning experiences is that learners develop a set of beliefs about themselves and about the content they're learning. And these beliefs can act as affordances, that is, they can help you to learn really well and be resilient and tough, or they can do the opposite. They can cause you to be non-resilient, in fact somewhat fragile, and not particularly strategic about how you go and learn. There's two ways they do this. The first way beliefs operate is they can negatively affect people's affective thoughts, or the affective domain. That's emotions and so on. And if you talk to a lot of these learners about their school experiences, you realize that these experiences were very negative. And what tends to happen is they develop identities or thoughts about themselves that are really around not belonging to the academic world. So they begin to exclude themselves from the academic world, and they say, you know, this just isn't for me, I'm not cut out for it, I'll go and do something else. And what happens is they become very susceptible to failure. So because in their previous learning experiences, whenever they began to encounter difficulty, that usually resulted in failure for them. You know, they would disengage and avoid contact with it. When they come into a new course and they begin to experience difficulty again, as we all do, their response, rather than digging in and moving forward and harassing the tutor and their friends and reading more and so on, is really rather the opposite. They tend to enact avoidance strategies where they move back, they're embarrassed at times, they sort of believe that they're going to fail, so they tend not to push forward, but to begin to think about how to mitigate the effects of that failure. That's the first thing. The second thing is a lot of learners have negative beliefs about how you learn. And I'll give you an example. A strategic learner, when they get readings on a course, they look through the outcomes of the course and what's expected of them, and then they begin to strategically read that content. They might read certain bits out of all of those articles. They know that if they just tried to read all of those articles in depth, they just wouldn't have time to do it. So they select the bits they need and they put the picture together and they deep process it. Somebody with lower literacy skills often believes, or people often believe, that you should start at the top of a text and just work your way through. So if you're trying to read a 20-page text and that's 1 of 10, you're going to start at the top and work your way through from top to bottom, and you're on a hide into nothing if you do that. You're never going to have time to get through that content. And really this comes down to elaboration versus rehearsal. So people who are really sophisticated learners, they elaborate information, they go deep, they can go shallow when they want to, but they tend to be really strategic about how they do it. On the other hand, people with lower literacy and numeracy skills tend to stick to rehearsal, which is trying to copy what the teacher told you, copy the points out of the book, and just learn the stuff. through memorization, rote learning, and so on. Rehearsal strategies, and are really, really ineffective. So what happens is those beliefs really set the learner up for failure. Now here's the dangerous thing. If they come onto a course and they're excited and motivated to do well, and they experience failure again, then this is likely to perpetuate cycles of failure. And this is why just taking learners and putting them into provision is ineffective. The solution, well, one of the solutions to think about is the idea that there are lots of literacies. You know, the idea that there's a digital literacy and a health literacy and a quantitative literacy and so on, which is absolutely correct and great. So I think that we should begin to look at a meta-literacy, and that's a literacy of learning. And if we could put our heads together and begin to think about how to really build in those learning skills and overcome those negative beliefs and impart positive beliefs and positive learning strategies, learners will be far more likely to be able to learn as they go on into the future. The most important commodity as we go forward into the future is going to be the ability to learn. So the idea of contextualized learning is fantastic, but it's going to be a generalized meta skill, a meta literacy that really does people well in the future. So there's something to think about, a meta literacy, a literacy of learning. If we could put our heads together and develop something, I really believe we could change some lives.